Hello and welcome to Lands Unknown. My name is Will, and today we're going to crack in and finish working on this area of Zaalea here, the cis-Metrine area. I do have a bit of a hard cutoff at noon because I'm editing the video that's supposed to come out tomorrow. Well, no, I'm putting it out to patrons tomorrow, maybe tomorrow night. We'll see how it goes. Let's everyone filter in and yeah, just get started with the hello, Kate. Oh, gonna be working on some F regions today. F in the chat. Hello, Writer 2. Good morning. All right, let's switch it over here. Excellent. Hello, Jan. Jan. And old growth forest. Yes, F's in the chat. Oh, thank you, Writer 2. Yeah, I mean, the stream is going to end as close to noon as I can make it today, just because of the finishing the editing, but I appreciate you standing for as long as you can. I see what I used that for. Just going to refresh myself over the file. Okay, so in this area, we do have higher elevations, and a bunch of that is going to be filled in by some EF. Going to be some valleys there, a little bit of ET, maybe some D in there. But I'll probably all right, need to pick a better brush. Certainly not water flicks. All right, Studio Pen, there we go. Hello, Gavin Hamilton. Let's see if I can. There we go. That's a bit better. All right, yeah. So gonna start up at this high area over here, and then just move down towards the coast. Oh, you're new to live streams. Well, welcome to the stream. We've got, I don't know, half a dozen or so in the backlog. But great that you've been seeing the channel. Is there a video you like the most so far? Are you a Chariot head? Or did you get into it through the Spec Atlas or perhaps the live stream with Bib? A lot of people got into the channel through the live stream with Bib. All right, so the surface temperature at this would be... I gotta go check the other file. All our schmutzig from last time. Okay, so it looks like... Yeah, it's going to be in the 18 to 12 range on the... at surface level, so probably closer... Yeah, at surface level will probably be... what? 15, 16 or so? Yeah, let's say 15. Oh, hello, Jake. Oh, you're making Turkish cabbage rolls. Wow, Turkish cabbage rolls are good. What are you putting in it? Bulgur? Lentils? Oh, you've been watching live streams after the streams. Ah, wonderful. Oh, the religions video. But you're familiar with me from Madeline Artifacting channels. That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad you've been able to catch the streams after the fact. After the religion one. Wow, that's... I guess now that's old old release content. That's old lore on the channel. Because it would have been what? Wow, that's like 6 months ago now. Bulgur mostly cooked with pomegranate molasses. Yeah, there we go. I love bulgur. All right, so about 15 or so at sea level. All right. So if it's 15 at sea level, then we need to see what it's going to be like at sea level in the winter. There we go. Yeah, probably in the negatives there, maybe -3. I'm going to go check the other one just to make sure. This is a weird one because it's right on the boundary really between, you know, like a more oceanic and subcontinental region and, you know, veering into the continental. So I want to look at the Zaalean region to kind of see what it's looking like. Maybe I can look at the rough one just to give me an idea. Because I do have one with the old practice isotherms on it. What? There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So if we just kind of follow this along. Yeah, totally -6. Wonderful. Oh, hello, Madeline. Hey, how are you doing on this wonderful Sunday? I'm doing pretty good. It is sunny outside. You know, nice to take a break from working on video editing. I was doing it all day yesterday, and I only got half the video done. But it is definitely a crash course because I'm starting to use Adobe for the video editing, and I didn't do that before. So just getting the workflow down, and yeah, I thought it would be a lot more straightforward than it was going to be. So what I say, -6? Yeah, -6. Cold. It's going to be cold. Yeah, it is. I don't know. Because the way I did it before was I essentially made the video and the script at the same time, and then I recorded and kind of put it together. But this time I wrote the script, did the audio, and then I'm doing the video. So it's just a bit of a different process as well. So we'll see what works. And Madeline and I are actually going to be doing a stream on... Let's jump out for a sec. Madeline and I agreed to do a stream on February 20th? I think you can probably see why I do the slideshow filming method. Yes, I was doing that too. I just thought this would be easier, different. So I may go back to the slideshow method. The 21st is a Saturday, yes. So Madeline and I are going to be doing a live stream on the 21st. I believe it'll be 1 p.m. my time, PT, and 4 p.m. Madeline time, ET. And it'll be specifically related to the biogeography video. So it'll be very exciting. And I can't talk about it yet because the video's not out. But I'm excited about it. I'm very excited. Yeah, and I'm definitely noticing that I'm getting better, especially with the audio stuff. So excited for spoilers. Yes. Okay, so now we've kind of hit our baselines there. We're going to see what it looks like at these higher elevations and what elevation trips the ET and the EF. And so 1000 is the transition between the light green and the yellow. And 1000 is going to hit the 0 mark. Easy. No, we're already at 0 because it's -6. So 1000 is going to hit the -12 mark. Ooh. And it'll be 9. So somewhere around 1 kilometer, somewhere just before a kilometer up, is going to transition to ET. Wonderful. And then it's going to take probably 2.7 kilometers is when we, or 2.5 kilometers is when we're going to hit the EF, though it could happen earlier. Though the air around there is going to be particularly moist, so I'm going to say 2.7. And yeah, in the winter, I mean, it's going to be cooler in the winter, but it's not going to, it doesn't really matter, to be quite frank, because it's already below 0 in the summer. Because for EF, we don't have an EFD climate, right? So I am going to find everywhere above 2.7, which I believe is between the yellow and the red, or the orange, somewhere between yellow and orange. I may just stick to orange. We shall see. I'm going to go check first. This is why we have keys. Aha, see? It's the transition between orange and red. That is where we're looking for. We're looking for that transition. Everyone needs to have keys. If you don't have keys on your map, then nobody can read them. And Gavin has a question. Bonk. Yeah, of course. Please ask your niche question. And my human geography background may be able to help. See you later, Madeline. Thanks for dropping by. Sources for classical antiquity urbanization, rates of mobilization rate based on population. For ancient armies. I see. So there have been issues for calculating the population of urban centers. What's his name? Yeah, there is a scholar that I can recommend who's quite good for Greek polises. For the Roman side, there are other scholars. I mean, different people are good at calculating different things. Sometimes people try to take Roman numbers and apply them to the ancient Greeks, which tends to be a problem. Some people we have, for some cultures, we have very good understandings of, what their populations are because they kept records. So, oftentimes, ancient East Asia tends to be particularly, the dynasties that prefigure China tend to be particularly good at that. But I can find them later. What after I take the break, I can grab my reader that I keep all my stuff in, and I can recommend places to people to go check out. Just off the top, though, there is a scholar who does popular history communication, who is a scholar of ancient history, particularly of the Mediterranean, focusing on the military history of the Roman Republic. I think I'll just go. Let me. Boop. Here we go. It's called ACOOP, which I believe stands for something of unmitigated pedantry, a collection of unmitigated pedantry. And his name's Brett. So Brett Devereaux is a good place to look for ancient stuff. And he has talked about population before. I don't kind of read this stuff every week. But, from a materialist perspective, his stuff is really good. And we can agree on, the analysis of the, the material culture, more or less. Maybe under P, there's something for population. Yeah, one sec. Yeah, it should be here somewhere. Some stuff. Oh, talks about Malthus. All right. Oh yeah. So I think in this makes sense. So this in Hoplite 1, he probably talks about the population of hoplites. There's a scholar on city-states who's written some like huge treatises on city-states that are really good, and I think he has some great numbers on city-states for ancient Greeks. Yeah, Victor Davis Hanson. Okay. All right, where is um? Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is. Yeah. M.H. Hansen. Morgan's Herman Hansen is a very good source um, for ancient Greek polises, and I think he gets kind of closest for getting the population of the polis. People often like overestimate how many. All right, so in ancient history, in especially when talking about ancient Greek polises, usually the numbers used to calculate how many people are in a polis are based on how many people they could muster in their armies. And so they look at the number of like Athenian hoplites there are, for example, and then they base how many people are in the city using estimates on how many people are hoplites. And many ancient scholars have just gone to the Romans and been like, oh, well, this is how many Roman men participate in the Roman military. Therefore, this is how many people are in a Greek polis if we apply those numbers to hoplites. The issue is that the Roman Republic was an incredibly militarized society, and they had a vastly different way of organizing their society where, there were many men who had, large farms, essentially. And the Roman Republic tried to recreate that through their colonization efforts. Whenever they took land or conquered another city-state, they set aside land for Roman settlers to go and have farms. And the reason why that these Romans wanted to have these larger than average farms is so that these Roman farms could support heavy infantry. Because heavy infantry with the armor, the shields, and the swords, that's expensive. The Greeks are entirely different. Hoplites, the idea is that there would tend to be two strata of hoplites. One strata would have been essentially like a wealthy landowning class hoplite, and then another strata of hoplite, which would have been, I guess they would have been citizens, and they would have owned things or been farmers themselves, but they weren't particularly rich, and they were often not politically empowered. So, and we do have ancient sources talking about how you have, hoplites who actually work in the fields and who do their own agriculture, and these are like the tanned hoplites, and they fight better, and they tend to be better at campaigning because they exercise and they're used to labor. Meanwhile, the upper strata of hoplites who tend to be able to afford all the fancy things, they sit around. Like, they are slave owners. They own land that they rent to other people. They don't actually have to do all that much. So these are very different societies, and a lot fewer people in the Greek case actually participated in these citizen militia, like volunteer kind of. No, they weren't volunteer. They were like, citizen militias that went out to war. So, I would definitely recommend Brett's blog. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. I think yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff in there, and he probably covers those debates and those sorts of things. If I had to get approximate, I take the estimate of military age men in the state and divide it as a yet undetermined variable. Yes, that's how they do it usually. Read somewhere that certain cultures have different mobilization rates, which is why nomadic cultures that have smaller populations can muster large armies compared to armies from big states. Yes, and gonna take I'll take a few more minutes on this and then go start doing the climate mapping. But so when you have pastoral societies, essentially everyone's a combatant. I mean, we focus more so on men, especially because men tend to be the ones who take on the role of warrior, going on raids and engaging in pitched battles. Though, like when nomadic pastoralists attacked camps, I mean, they'd attack women as well, and women would also defend camps. So everybody engages to some degree in combat. When you have more sedentary agricultural societies, you start to see shifts towards certain strata of the population engaging in warfare. So when we tend to see more stratification and more economic inequality, what we tend to see is certain stratas engage in warfare. And historically, it tends to be elites because kit's expensive. So in the medieval period, yes, sometimes like the Battle of Agincourt and stuff like that, you get tens of thousands of combatants on each side. But for a large part of the medieval period, and for what I've seen some scholars calling the middle millennium, you tend to see elites engaging in warfare, especially when you have these like fractured polities like you do in medieval Europe. The Byzantines, Sassanids, like empires, are able to mobilize larger groups of people, equip more people, because you do have states or state-like formations. But when you have sedentary groups or pastoral groups or like hunter-gatherer groups where there is less stratification, you tend to see more people, a larger portion of the population in combatant roles. There can be a lot of economic disparity among pastoralist peoples. Those who, in those kind of stratified societies where you have, Han, for example, becoming, like a military and political leader. They tend to own a decent amount of land or demand a certain amount of tributes. But we're measuring their wealth largely in herds of animals, and life on the steppe is very fickle. You can lose your herds, especially to very poor weather conditions, right? Like the Siberian high comes through and half of your herd freezes to death. That's half your wealth. So, while there can be a lot of stratification in pastoral societies, there is also a lot of variability in wealth, and that also lends to different strategies, social strategies, and that plays out in warfare. The other thing we see in societies that engage in a lot of hunting for their subsistence, we also tend to see a lot of people participate in warfare in those cultures because the skills you need to engage in warfare, like shooting a bow from a horse, is something everybody does. And when you are in a society where a large portion of the people do not regularly use tools that can easily become weapons, like when they're all agricultural, training in those specific skills, like hunting with a bow, becomes something that elites do, which is why we see in early, like medieval Japan, samurai were like mounted archers and foot archers, and they practiced a lot with their bows. Because if you're a peasant who works in rice fields, why would you use a bow? When would you have time to use a bow? And so, this is why we see certain and it's really hard as well to be a mounted archer, which is usually why the mounted the cavalry of a lot of nations that do not have these sorts of pastoral equestrian traditions tend to have heavy infantry that are shock no tend to have heavy cavalry that are shock cavalry. It's just very very difficult if you're not training from a young age and doing it constantly to be a good mounted archer, right? Oh, you don't need mine. Check the channel. Yeah, no, I mean hijacking is what the live streams are for. I probably only spent half the live stream doing the climate stuff, but it's fun. It is fun, and I'm interested in logistics and infrastructure, particularly in conflict. And along with state formation, I look at a lot of different military systems. So I enjoy yeah, I enjoy that stuff. Okay, so we want this transition at around 1 kilometer, which is the transition between the yellow and the green. And I was looking specifically at the eastern side here. Yeah, if anything, it's going to be lower further north. But I mean, I'm going to come back and we're going to do the, I guess, cis-Metrine side of Zaalea. I don't know, maybe next week. We'll see what we get to. But I do want to get the ET down just for getting into the center of the Zaalean Cordillera here. All right, there we go. Beautiful. Really links together there. Now, I'm suspicious that the ET will be at 900 on the cis-Metrine side this low, but we can always carve it out later. But it is interesting. I can check how it is down here. Yeah, so there is a transition we can see in the tropical area where the ET is around that's you know, it's further in the orange. Yeah, it's right on the transition between the orange and red. So right around like 3 to 4 kilometers, I think. That's why really important to have these on different layers so that you can carve things away easily. Though one of my projects, I did them all on the same layer. That was purposeful. That was a different intent. Okay, so now around there we are going to be. Well, I'm going to carve out one area. So this area in here is not going to be ET. It's, you know, probably going to be some sort of deep climate. Or it could be a sea climate. It could be like a CFC or something like that. But I'd have to go and check the rough, whatchamacallit that I did. Continentality map. But speaking of ancient history and military stuff, there seems to, I don't know, comes into my recommended videos, there seems to be a conversation going on around whether or not historically people who wielded spears and shields in infantry formations use them underhanded or overhanded, which seems to be like a very, I don't know, to me at least, it seems to be something that is entirely divorced from a lot of the academic conversations going on, because the vast majority of depictions we have of warfare where people are fighting with shields and spears that we have depictions of and that we have attestations of, people are using it overhanded. So, you know, rather than saying that's silly, maybe we should think about why people, for thousands of years decided to use their spears that way. Yeah. Oh, we have a line there. Yeah, I'm gonna hold off from this one here because I want to check on the coast because it's gonna be different on the west side. So I'll just do some checks and see what it's at. Speaking of, let's do that now. And I'm gonna make a new layer for that. Yeah, so in the summer it is around 18 at sea level. And in the winter at sea level, it is going to be around 0. Yeah, so that's kind of when our D climates curl around. Yeah, okay. So, but it will be slightly more than 2 kilometers that it transitions to ET on the western side of the Cordillera here. I mean, it's going to get below 0 around 3 kilometers, so we can push it in on the west side, on the cis-Metrine side, and yeah, so that's okay. I mean, we could just make it a very easy 3 kilometers is going to be ET. Sorry, EF. 3 kilometers is EF. And then in the, yeah, when's it going to hit? So I don't know, let's say 2.3 kilometers. Because we want to hit 10. No, if we take it down by 12, that's already at 8, and 8 is 2 kilometers. So, no. Yeah, 12 is 2 kilometers. So, it's going to be 1 point, yeah, we'll say 1.7 or so. Yeah, it's going to be below 0, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it's going to be in that transition between yellow and orange. Yep, just before yellow becomes orange. And now we can carve away some of this ET on the western side. There we go. That looks better. And that's probably going to be quite pronounced when we go more further south because it's, much more mild there. But this area in here will certainly be a D climate. No question. That's at least the northern parts, but I do think there's an elevation here. Yeah, there's at least half a kilometer in elevation. And oh, sorry for clicking or whatever. On the eastern side over here, I'm going to make it come down a little bit more than on the western side, and that's just because we're moving further east. So we're transitioning from this more oceanic climate towards a more, not climate, we're transitioning from a more oceanic temperature regime to a more continental temperature regime. And so we're going to be seeing it get colder inside this valley, especially because we have this mountain range that's kind of separating the land in there from this kind of warmer or more moderate temperature in the coast. Oh, hey, yeah, no problem for being late. Oak Ridge. Not an artistic crisis. My artistic crisis is trying to get the video done. Okay, cool. Oh no, same face syndrome. Yeah, I'm gonna start drawing people soon, so I'm excited to deal with that. Okay, so what did I say here? ET starts at 1.7 kilometers. Yeah, I don't see much ET. Maybe a little, but not a significant amount. There we go. That seems judicious at this point, although I could add some a little bit further up. All right, wonderful. All right, now we got to go in for the EF. Yeah, it's a pretty quick transition. And so as discussed, I'm going to go from the eastern side to the western side and then kind of smooth it out a little bit. But now I have an idea of where it is going to be on the western side, which is 3 kilometers. And while on the other side it's 2.7. Yeah, because it's pretty similar in the at the higher range. It's just the lower range is quite different, which is why the ET happens sooner in the west than in the east, but the EF happens around the same time. And yeah, it'll be the boundary between the orange and the red. I think your issue is that you keep trying to cartoon style characters, but using real humans as reference. Huh. I think when you're trying to do cartoon style characters, you may be, less likely to, you may be less likely to get that because of, yeah, you may be less likely to get that, but I would think that's because, you're using humans, unless you're not like, I guess, exaggerating certain features. I think that tends to be what differentiates a lot of like, um, when you're trying to differentiate characters, you're trying, you give them different silhouettes and make different proportions in the faces and stuff like that. And I guess, people usually don't have that exaggerated features, right? All right, so just going to come in here around the 3 kilometers and get that in. After I remember to change it to brush instead of eraser. Erasure. Eraser. Yeah. Ah, yeah, I see. Okay. Oh, that happens. Yeah, and then on the western side of the plateau here, I'm just going to expand it down. It's going to be more similar to the eastern side. I see my folly there. All right, bye, Rider 2. Thanks for coming by. See you next week. But, if you saw the chariot video, then you've seen some of the faces I've attempted. So, uh, maybe they have same faces. Well, I think they kind of have different faces, right? I don't know. But I don't know if I have the skill or the practice yet to kind of do a decent job at it. That's looking pretty good. I did fill it in. Yeah, I think everybody has their own hurdles. All right, I am going to take a quick break, and my computer's heating up here, which isn't normally how it goes. So I am going to see if I can get a box or something to put in the way of the fan so that doesn't interfere as much. So while everyone takes some time for the sun, I will be back in a couple minutes. All right, and we are back. Yeah. Thank you, Kate, for the sun in the chat. I really appreciate it. This is looking pretty good. I believe last time, when I was doing this, I decided that there'd be an ice field in there and that the elevation would be higher in that area, which is why I put in the EF in that region we can see. Because it is just a plateau, and we do see variation in plateaus. I'll bring up a topographic map of the Tibetan Plateau just for a sec. Just looking for a decent one with a good key. Okay, that one's good. I just picked the wrong thing. Yeah, figure one. All right, so we can see from this that we do see a decent amount of variation. We can see the foreslope and the back slope rise pretty quickly. The blue color here being very high. So it rises from about, what's it say here, 175 meters up to 2,000 meters quite quickly. I think it hits, you know, the 5,000 meter mark, you know, in what, a handful of kilometers in some cases. Yeah, looks like about less than 10 kilometers in many places. And then it tends to stay between about 4,500 and about 5,500 for most of the interior of the plateau, with the, you know, sometimes slight changes in large portions. So when you're thinking about your own plateaus, you want to give them that kind of variation and realize that, you know, they're quite high. And so pretty much throughout. I mean, there are some valleys and cool opportunities in there. So when I'm looking at this plateau and I'm thinking about the heights I have, the highest the fore and the back slope get are, you know, probably, you know, there are parts in excess of 4 kilometers in elevation, though, you know, the average in this dark red area, let's go into here. The average in that dark red area, I believe, is between 3,000 and 4,000 meters. Go back for the key. Yeah, 3,000 to 4,000 meters. And if this needs to be, what was it, near 3,000 in order to trigger, then I would like to put some of that EF in there, because this is the surface temperature. And the other thing to think about too is that as glaciers advance, so these glaciers would be advancing, both of those, oh no, that was fine. So these glaciers would be advancing from here, and then they would start to fill up the little valleys with ice. And when we fill up those valleys with ice, it starts to raise the surface, right? So the surface of the glacier, by increasing the elevation, also decreases the surface temperature. And that will insulate the rest of the glacier and help it advance more. So this is how you can get, glaciers starting to fill up these, these plateaus, even if large parts of the plateau are lower than the rest. So decreasing it there, what is the story that this one's telling? Yeah, that there's some valleys in the eastern side that are a bit lower than than the southern side. There's some valleys in there. But what we like to do is show how these valleys move across. So if there's a particularly shallow valley where it doesn't really get consistently cool enough, apologies for shifting the mic. All right, so let's put it in here. So we could have some valleys in here, and this is where subglacial lakes tend to grow, or not subglacial, subglacial below the lake. This is where we get glacier. This is where we get lakes at the foot of the glacier growing, and because this is an endorheic basin, it doesn't go anywhere. Eventually, that glacial water may fill up and then spill out at some point. And I do see over here may be a good way for it to spill out. So let's do this. There we go. So we get a bit of some differentiation there, and then we also get a channel for our rivers and things to flow through. Though, maybe it should be higher up here so it can kind of flow this way. That would be interesting. Yeah, let's do that. All right, let me turn this up so I can see an area that seems to, oh yeah, here seems good. Let's go into the EF and draw that line there. And then the interesting thing that can happen with that is that we can have it at some point spill out. And looking at this one here, it's an interesting spot because we have a bit of an intersection between a couple places. So let's bring up, yeah, this one's fine. So the water could go this way or this way. What is more interesting? I mean, the water going this way and then flowing up to here isn't particularly interesting. I mean, it's fun, no question, and there will be a river through there. But the other option is to here. But yeah, here could be interesting. And I think that works because you could have a little delta there that grows out. Yeah, well, that's fun. And I think it would probably be a more, yeah, it would be an interesting climate for people to, yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, you probably have 3 distinct routes here that the water could hypothetically flood through, but there are probably also like, you know, various glacier, like meltwater rivers and those sorts of things going in each of those directions. That's nice. Okay. Was there anything else I need to do for the EF climate in this region? I think I need to connect it. Yeah, doesn't need to be connected. So let's look at what it's going to be up here. Okay, because that's what I want, I think. I switched it before I was looking. No. All right, so now we are going to look at the January map. And it seems there's -6 and then -12. Yeah, it seems like it'd be about -9. And then looking at July. Yeah, probably about that. Yeah, probably around 12. I don't know. What did I have it for here? So we'd have DFC at a lower altitude, which we have, and then it very quickly becomes ET, which we have again. And it would take about 2 kilometers for it to become EF. So let's go in and put EF around 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers is where the yellow meets the orange, which is what I have here, which is good. Yeah, and that's about 2.5 kilometers down here. So it's about halfway between orange and red at that point, which is more or less what I did, I think. Yep. Yeah, it could be 2.5. That's fine. I may expand it out then. I mean, it more or less looks like that anyway, so that's okay. But I can have it in some of these. Let's crank that up a little bit. Yeah, so I do want it to be at some of the, oops. Oops. I do want it to be at some of the higher zones here. But it's not going to be as pronounced further south on this side. Was it even doing that? Did I have the eraser on? I hate it when that happens. All right, let's just go. Okay, so now when I get rid of that, yeah, there we go. All right, and let's see if there's anything on the eastern side. Yeah, not particularly. I could have a spur of it come off, though. I think that should. Hey, that's looking pretty good. All right, now let's, how much time do we have? Oh, we still got half an hour. Beautiful. So now we can fill in that spot here and then work our way further. Yeah, work our way further out. So here, I'm going to use that 18 and 0 and then just adjust it for the elevation. What layer is that on? Why is it a slightly different color of gray? Okay. That was bugging me. Great. Okay. So looking at the elevation here, it is 5. What is it? Yeah, between 5. Yeah. The average is between what, 250 and no, between 500 meters and 1 kilometer. So I'm going to check my continentality bit. One sec. All right, and it is going to be oceanic. So I can check to see what oceanic would be. I believe over 15 in oceanic is DFB. Yeah, so it would be DFB and DFC. I think the parts of the slightly higher elevation are going to be DFC. So we're going to go in there with DFB first because it's the lower layer. And I'm just going to fill it in. Oh, hey, Jake. The sarma came out nicely. Oh, that's wonderful. You know, Anatolian cuisine is quite good. Oh, I didn't get it all. Okay, now I'm going to come in and try to get those spots. No, because it would be all DFC because if it's 15 degrees or lower, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be 15 degrees or lower. So yeah, it is going to be DFC. Okay. Okay, there we go. And that's going to hold true continuing down the coast here. However, it looks like we're going to see a transition. Yeah, we're probably going to see a transition from CFB in the coast to DFB and then DFC. I do want to make it down to here, but I'm not sure if we're gonna. I'm just gonna drop this here just in case. It may not work there. Oh, and Jake, if you're still around, the Ornalu or Ordalu art is super cool. I know you've already talked about that on your own channel. And I know I sent you a message, but I think it's really dope. I think Hannah did a great job. Okay, so now that we're over here on the coast, and it's going to be 0 at sea level, we're going to have to pick a place where we're going to have this DFB kind of end. So I'm going to go to the winter isotherms. And we do see it ending right here. Okay, so let's zoom in without this on so we can see what's happening here. All right. All right, so that'll be an interesting transition. The other one that I was thinking of was that we could have it be pulled in a bit more to kind of hug the coast a bit better. And then essentially like just go through like that and grab stuff up here. And then the other stuff would be CFB, just to like tighten where the 0 degrees is. No, let me check the winds. Okay, it's winter, so the cold is moving out. Yeah, no. If the cold's moving out and the hot water is moving, no, the cold water would be going down. The hot water would be pushing up. Okay, where would let me check where that would be. I think we were doodling that. Nope, that's the wrong one. Nope. Apologies, that was the angry coffee machine in the background. It's not happy. All right, so cold water, hot water, hot water. Yeah, so we would have that kind of circulation. All right, let's go back. Well, that was quite a choice, making it white. Yeah, I'm going to go with keeping it tighter against the coast and pushing up, especially along the coast, the D climates. I think that's a good idea. So yeah, so that is going to be somewhat insulated. So the island's closer to the coast over here. I don't mind being cooler, but no, maybe not that one, because I did say I was going to push it up. Let's go see that again. I should have made it white. Don't know what I was doing. Here we go. Easy fix. Easy fix. Or not? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, okay. So let's pull it up, maybe just to the edge of here. And how does that change our temperature maps that we got? January. Yeah, I don't mind it being 0 in there, but we are just going to be essentially doing this up here. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. Okay. Oh, Jake in the comments sent quite a mix of references. I think I can pull some out. Looks pretty good overall. Um, she did it. She did do a brilliant job. Goals. Hashtag drawing goals. Here we go. Now we can come in and add the CFB in here and kind of finish some of this out in the next 20 minutes. So we can have this region kind of done. Yeah, don't have much CFB. Just some scattered bits, but now we're going to have more CFB, so that's going to be nice. All right, so CFB in here. Whoop. Is this under or over? We will find out. Under. Wonderful. That is kind of bugging me. I don't have any CFC yet. Still have to go in and do that in a sec. Because, yeah, I guess the CFC will carry on. So, and I need to go in with black, I think, to... Because it seems like part of this outline is not all... equally filled in here. Okay, so now that we got that down, I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to grab some CFC. And make a new layer above our CFB layer. Come on. There we go. All right, we got a little bit in there. Let me double check what that's looking like here. Yeah, so there, it does continue up a little bit. Oh yeah, that looks fun. All right, and let's figure out exactly precipitation wise where the cutoff is. Because, it would be the summer which would be providing this major cutoff. Yeah, that's parallel. I mean, it is in the low pressure zone, so it would be getting some precipitation, I suppose. Yeah, it is moving. Because, yeah, it's being drawn in to there. So I could easily see. Okay, let's get something else going on up here. Yeah, I'm on this layer. Good. Do the white on this layer. So I could easily see that being drawn in. That seems reasonable. And also, because this is high pressure, we'd also have that. So, but that would carry it kind of equally into this area. But yeah, because some winds would be parallel. Because if it is going like that, then it would be a broader slope than what I have here. And it's going that way, and then you got other ones going this way, because this cyclone is going like this. So depending on what's going on, I mean, this one could be the more powerful cyclone pulling stuff in that way. What I do here? Yeah, I had a more equal. No, it was kind of cut like that. What am I doing right now? That's the question. Yeah, that's much too sharp. And I think a bit too much of this is C, which I'm sure you never thought you'd hear me say. So I'm going to carve out, yeah, because the line's going along here, I think it just makes sense to make more of this into C. So that one can also be C. I am not going to discount the parallel winds. Maybe just to there, I think. Maybe the straight. Yeah, let's just do the straight. Okay, let's do the straight. Let's go to the C, C, and let's grab it. Great. And then let's go to our CFC. Go to our CFC color, and we will fill that. And then we're going to go back to CFC and erase. And then we are going to go back to our CFB color here. And get in there and get that guy. All right, now I need to go into some black on the background. And yeah, this is always going to be an iterative process. You're going to have to return to some stuff that you may have previously done and give a little once over as you make more decisions that's going to like crystallize your ideas about how it should look. And now it's also going to be pretty neat for, yeah, I'm going to turn this off again just so I can see where some of the wind is moving. Yeah. I may also do it down here too. I also need to go into the background here and define that a bit better. There we go. And these ones, that's an interesting question. Yeah, they can be CFB as well. Just because they're going to be getting more precipitation from the ocean there. And you know, I may do a transition higher up here. All right, there, yeah. So we got the neck of it changing to CFB. What layer am I doing that on? Good, good, good. Okay. All right, always got to check. Always got to check. And then we can get it all the way up here and oh no. No, no, that's bad. That's bad. All right, well, I'm going to go to the DFB. I'm going to auto select. Then I'm going to erase. There we go. Really? I guess it is. That's interesting. All right, where are we at? We got 9 minutes left. Oh, yeah, I don't think those are going to be DFC, to be entirely honest. Or they may be a transition. Do I have a climate check around there? Yeah, I have one just there. So we're going to see a transition at some point, but we do need to see an increase in elevation in order for that to happen. Yeah, I don't know how low I should go with the DFB, but we'll see. We'll see. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because if that's on the 0 line, I need to check what it would be down further. All right, and this should be easy because it is right on the coast. Yeah, and that's the elevation change. Shouldn't worry too much about that. Yeah, about 19 or so. That's not really the concern. Aha! So yeah, that's closer to 6. Okay, so 6 needs to be 1,000 kilometers up in order to switch to a... Yeah, it needs to be 1,000 kilometers up in order to switch to a B... no, a D climate. So if it is going to be 6 in the winter and what I say, 19 in the summer... Oh, good evening, not Dane Hart. Yes, almost Dr. Unknown. All right, so then it's going to be 1 km to 0. And at 1 kilometer, that will be 13. And it's oceanic. And if it's oceanic, that means it'll probably be a DFC at that point. Oh, that's weird. Let me check. Let me double check that. Just opening up the document for the process so I can check. Yeah, so DXB in oceanic zones is 15. So I need, so 15, so this would probably be 12, and that would be good to 0. Is there, let me double check the summer. No, because this is due to temperature. So this would be on this side of it, on the surface, because it would kind of go like that. So I am off for the winter a little bit. I think that's 12. Yes, 12. So it would be 12. So 1 kilometer, it would be a CFC. Yeah, so there's going to be a rapid change. So there won't necessarily be. Okay, and then at 2, oh yeah, and that's going to transition at 1.5 to ET. Okay, so I gotta rethink that area a bit. Yeah, so the D is not going to come down that far on the western side. Yeah, no. Yeah, and the 0 line on this coast is going to be sneaking in, and then it's going to just sort of peel into there. So we're going to have a CFB transition to CFC and then ET at some point, and then it's going to shift to this sort of continental stuff at another point. A bunch of those DFC areas are going to be CFC or they're going to be ET. Well, I did say it would peel off eventually. All right, so it is now noon. Let me just look at what we've been doing today. There we go. So we continued going down the coast here. We added an ET and EF. In these, let's do a pink. We did it in here as we continued moving down. Came down pretty definitively on this, and that's important because that's going to help us determine the CF areas moving forward. And so we extended this down here and worked in that area. I think, some of this tundra may be peeled back when we work on the other side, which we may do before getting to the desert. I'm sure some of this will get peeled back as well, but that's okay. And I know, some of this stuff seems, a little small for the time spent on it. However, there were some pretty big decisions, right? Like deciding where this distinction was, where this was, figuring this area out here. I mean, this is pretty obvious. We probably wouldn't see that on this level of a map. I may, wipe it out, and then, if I ever do anything closer, we could have a... Yeah, no, I'll wipe that out. I'll just keep it in mind, or I'll make a note somewhere. Because something like a valley like that would not be visible, right? Because when we're thinking about how much, what our scale is, we can always go back to this, right? Like, you don't see that kind of stuff at this scale, except if it's, kind of the Nile-esque river. You could argue that you would see it, but what we're, kind of seeing is not this. The elevation doesn't really need to have to change that much. I don't know. I may think about that. The Nile is changing my mind. The Nile is changing my mind. We could see it. I mean, the river itself wouldn't be that deep, but you know, maybe we'll figure that out next time. Mm. Yeah, next time we will continue making our way down the cis-Metrine coast. I think, you know, we will totally be able to finish getting all the way down here next time, you know, filling all that stuff in. I think that'll be pretty easy and straightforward. We can probably start on the desert along here. And then I'm thinking after that, you know, we'll fill in these areas and it should be good. We'll have, you know, done the whole region. And then, you know, in my own time, I will, you know, turn this into the satellite map. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's important just for double checking. I mean, I don't necessarily like how it looks. You know, I probably want to add some more variation to it because it just looks like, you know, a bit of a straight line at the moment. So that's something we may take some time with at the end of it. Um, and there's some other things here, like, you know, just this little straight line there isn't very compelling. I mean, there's some areas we need to fill in and double check, but that'll come probably after I do the satellite map, kind of a, you know, maybe I'll do a return to it to show everyone how that's been carrying along. But once you figure out some of these main numbers, you're able to fill in other stuff quite quickly. You know, getting the ET and the EF right and figuring out the positions of the, you know, the DFC is important to do. You know, I may now. Yeah, my apartment is right beside the main door, so sometimes someone buzzes. It's not going to set my mic off, but if I'm talking, it may pick it up. Yes, yeah, I'm totally thinking that. Oh, hi Horizon to-do list. Maybe from last week. Yeah, you know, it'll probably be that. I'll just, you know, make it a bit more pleasant to look at. Yeah, so that is all we're gonna have for next week. This week, next week we'll continue on, and I will also be talking about the recent episode, which will come out on the 13th. That I'm very excited for. So yeah, next week on the 15th, going to continue this, talk a bit about, you know, speculative biology and stuff like that as well. And then on the 20th, going to talk to Madeline about Spec Bio and Spec Evo stuff and some of the similarities that our projects share and talk about our different approaches to that. And on the 21st, then I'm going to, you know, continue on doing the Metrine side. So, yeah, looking very forward to seeing everyone next week. Yeah, see you next week, Jake. Thank you so much. It is very exciting. Yeah, thank you everyone for stopping by. Thank you to the regulars for Writer 2. I know you had to leave earlier. Thank you so much to Kate and Old Growth Forest. And who else was around? Yan was around. Gavin for dropping in on the live stream, asking some human geography questions. If you haven't already, you can, of course, like and subscribe. You can head over to the Patreon. You can also sign up for free if you would like updates on the streams, when those are going to happen. You will also get updates when the videos are out and those sorts of things. Yeah, other than that, I will see everyone next week.